Welcome, folks, to the post-game version of Upon Further Review. Thanks for sticking around through a little technical difficulties. I'm Jake Stevens, your host. Charles E. Smith Jr. will rejoin me next week. Hope you enjoyed the Monday Night Football game as the New York Football Giants, as they used to be known when the New York Giants was a baseball team in New York as well, they take out the St. Louis Rams by the score of 28-16 on Monday Night Football. And of course, this is an Inside Sports production, and I'm coming to you live from Super Sports Grill in Woodland Hills, California, on Ventura Boulevard between DeSoto and Canoga. And you can find me here every Monday night doing this webcast 5 to 5:30 Pacific time for the pregame show, and then once again a half-hour post-game show as well. So glad you could join us. Without further ado, let's get to the Monday Night Football game. And an interesting game that it was. Both teams desperate for a win. Of course, when you're the St. Louis Rams, it's not as a desperate situation because, well, you play in the NFC West, home of the Seattle Seahawks, San Francisco 49ers, and one other dreadful team that I can't even think of at this time. Oh yeah, it's the Arizona Cardinals, and they are dreadful. Now, the New York Giants, on the other hand, play in a division where the Philadelphia Eagles are 1-1, the Dallas Cowboys are 1-1, and the surprising Washington Redskins, though not too much of a surprise because the teams they played have been dreadful, they are 2-0 instead of top of the division. So the Giants needed a win, and they came away with one tonight, but it wasn't exactly pretty. Eli Manning on the opening drive looked sharp for a couple of plays, and then hung a ball that an NFL quarterback just can't hang, that a safety can come over and intercept after his wide receiver has beaten the corner. It was late, it took forever to get there, it was picked off. And that's about how it goes for Eli Manning, who wants to be in the class of a guy like Tom Brady, but isn't, for very mistakes just like that. And that wasn't the only mistake he made all night. Of course, some of those errors were compounded by his receivers finding ways to seemingly not catch balls and not be able to stand on their feet. And Mario Manningham, I'm talking to you, you had a touchdown pass and for some reason couldn't hold the football and then couldn't stand up. Those two things seem to be important, catching and running, if you're going to be a wide receiver in the NFL. Be that as it may, the Giants come away with a victory, but their defense once again showed that it's missing, about 7 parts. It's missing linebackers and defensive backs. This is a dreadful team due to injuries. No depth could help that. We talked about this on the pregame show, but Sam Bradford, if he had good receivers on his team, including Danny Amendola, who's out with injury, he might have been able to pick them apart even more than he did. Now, the Giants do come away with a victory, and they did show some spark on the offensive side. I expected it for them to be able to score, and they did. For the Rams, though, they drove up and down the field for much of the game, yet without much to show for it. And I got to tell you something. Steve Spagnuolo, you used to be a coach for the Giants. Unless you were trying to get the Giants to win, and so you were secretly plotting against your own team, you need to figure something out. And that something is touchdowns win games in the NFL, not field goals. The St. Louis Rams kicked field goals from the Giants' 2, 7, and 9-yard line. Field goals of 22, 25, and 27. You cannot win an NFL football game by kicking the ball from the 2-yard line. You need to go for it. You need to stick the ball in the end zone. You need to score touchdowns. You have a competent quarterback in Sam Bradford. You need to find ways to get into the end zone. I'm amazed that coaches do this time after time after time. If you have 2 possessions and you kick field goals both times, or if you have 2 possessions and you get a touchdown once and fail the other time, well, then you're ahead by a point, aren't you? And that's math that everybody can do. 7 is greater than 6. Of course, if you fail one of those times and you pin the other team deep, you're probably going to get the ball around midfield, maybe inside opponent's territory, and still have a great chance to come back and score. Go for it. Follow the lead of the high school coach who's talked about and gets brought up all the time, who never punts, ever punts. Okay, so maybe in the NFL that's not the greatest idea, but really, when you're inside the opponent's 10-yard line and you're kicking field goals, you're losing football games, and that's what happened with the Rams tonight. Those 3 field goals, if a couple of them are touchdowns, it could have been a whole different ball game. We'll never know because they kicked. And speaking of kicking, with 6.5 minutes left, Steve, and your team down by 12 points, exactly why are you punting the field goal? And why are you punting the football on a 4th and 7? What is the point of that? so you can get the ball back with 3 minutes left and have no time even if you went the length of the field really quickly and then had to get an onside kick and then had to go the length of the field again? It made no sense whatsoever. You had no chance to win once you punted the ball away. At least have the guts to go for it because it's the right thing to do. If you punt, you are guaranteed an L. Congratulations, you guaranteed it. Just for good measure, though, Spagnuolo also punted on 4th and 28 with about 1:45 left. I'm really not sure what he was afraid of there. Even if they don't get it, the Giants are going to kneel on the ball, so the margin of victory wouldn't have even been worse for the Giants compared to what the Rams were playing for. A loss is a loss last time I checked. Oh, coaches, you do amaze me. Always playing to not look bad and not lose by too much instead of playing to win the game. Herm Edwards was a terrible coach, and he never actually played to win the game. But he was right when he said, you play to win the game. Why don't coaches do that? I will never, ever, ever understand that. Whew. Now that I got that off my chest, I'm feeling a little bit better. I hope everybody enjoyed the game out there. Fits and starts, and could have been more exciting, but ended up not being. The Giants surviving. The Rams, well, they fall to 0-2. There's still hope for them, as I mentioned. The rest of their division, the 49ers are 1-1, and they were horrific on Sunday in blowing that lead against the Cowboys. And then you have the Seattle Seahawks, who may never win a game all year. They're just that bad. And you also have the Arizona Cardinals, who also have managed to be 1-1, though not their own fault. They probably should have been 0-2, but somehow the Panthers let the first 400-yard game for Cam Newton get away. But it's a dreadful division, and it wouldn't shock me if the Rams rebounded to come back and win that division. They are a solid team. They need to get much better on defense. They are head and shoulders above almost any offensive team in their division. Kevin Kolb, Larry Fitzgerald, a nice combination, but I would still take the balance, and I would still take Sam Bradford as my quarterback if you gave me a choice. Clearly, the rest of the QBs in the division are dreadful. Alex Smith, only not the worst quarterback in the division because Tavares Jackson is the QB for the Seahawks. Turning back to the New York Giants, Eli Manning in his division, comparatively, well, Rex Grossman's one quarterback. Eli's better than him. And Tony Romo, I talked about it in the pregame. What a gutty performance Tony Romo had in that comeback win. The news came down late today that he had both a fractured rib and a punctured lung. A small puncture, but a puncture nonetheless, when he went back into the game and helped the Cowboys come from behind and win. Don't know how many more times he can play with that, but they're not ruling him out for this week, saying it's still possible that he might be able to take the snaps this week. If he can't, John, I can throw an interception to anybody in the league. Kitna will throw for Dallas. That can't be good news. Also, Miles Austin with his groin injury after that monster 3-touchdown, 100-plus yard performance at wide receiver, he will be out. The question is, will Des Bryant be available for the Cowboys? Their young star, who did not play this week. It would be very helpful for them if he played next week, whoever might be the QB for Dallas. So I mentioned the Redskins at 2-0 sailing along. And the Eagles 1-1, Michael Vick with a concussion from last night's game. Don't know if he will be back playing next week. And it's a big one, as the Giants and Eagles will play. Without Vick, that game is much more of a toss-up. With Vick playing, the Eagles can put that one in the win column. So it'll be very interesting to see how that all plays out. Who is able to come back from injury, who will be able to play in the NFC East next week at quarterback. But nonetheless, the Giants come away with a victory, a much-needed win. They get themselves back to 500, and for a moment, their fans can, I don't know if they can exhale, but at least they can go away thinking, well, we're on the board. We have ourselves a W. Now, there's some teams that aren't going to get a W for a long time, and maybe not at all this season. I already mentioned the Seahawks. There's another team that I'm looking at that's dreadful and racked with injuries, and they were dreadful to begin with even before the injuries. We'll talk about them, and we'll take a look and talk about what do we know after 2 weeks in the NFL. What have we figured out? What have we been enlightened by? We'll get back to that in just a few moments, live from Soup Sports Grill in Woodland Hills, California. This is a production of Inside Sports. It's Upon Further Review, your Monday Night Football webcast. The postgame show carries on in 60 seconds. and we are back live from Soup Sports Grill in Woodland Hills, California. Jake Stevens with you. This is Upon Further Review, a Monday Night Football webcast show, an Inside Sports production. My regular co-host, Charles E. Smith Jr., will be back with me next week, and we'll be breaking down Week 3 and getting you set for another terrific Monday Night Football game. And then, of course, once all is said and done, we'll catch you on the post-game show. For those of you in the East who are still awake, hey, congratulations. And for those on the West Coast, you have a shot of being much more open and wide-eyed than the folks on the East Coast. I thank you for sticking around. I am Jake Stevens, and of course, this is a whole heck of a lot of fun. Another interesting game that went on tonight. A whole lot of interesting games that went on in the National Football League this weekend. And we won't recap them all, but I do want to, in this fourth quarter of our show, want to take a look and talk about what we have learned so far after 2 weeks in the National Football League. And as we do that, let me just say that if you hop onto Facebook, you can send messages. You can also email, there it is, jake@gmail.com, with comments or questions. We'll try to get to some of those live on the webcast as we can. So do please be interactive. As soon as we can figure out how we're going to take some phone calls on the show, we'll figure those out as well. But please don't hesitate if the spirit moves you. You want to rant, you want to talk about something, you got a question for us, do not be afraid. There are no dumb questions. There are only dumb people asking questions. All right, moving along. 2 weeks into the NFL season, what do we know? And I want to start from the top of the heap, if you will, with the Green Bay Packers. Super Bowl champions from last season, had to struggle just to get into the playoffs, then ran the table, beat the Falcons, beat the Bears, beat the Steelers, hoisted the trophy. Well, oftentimes there's a Super Bowl hangover for a team, and maybe because of the lockout and because the lack of OTAs, for those of you who aren't sure of that term, the off-season team activities, maybe because free agents didn't have much time to move anywhere, and maybe, of course, because of the fact that Green Bay returned so many players, so their core already knew how to play together. They are off and running. They are 2-0, and it does not seem like they are suffering any ill effects from winning a championship. The team has looked pretty good. Not great on defense, but then again, they didn't look great on defense for much of last year, but they picked their spots and they made some big plays. Aaron Rodgers, on the other hand, he looks spectacular. And Greg Jennings and Donald Driver and Jermichael Finley and anybody else they roll out there, plus their running backs with Ryan Grant and James Starks, they're looking good. The line looks good. The defense, they've got some work to do. But as I said, they find their moments. They play better when they're ahead, and that team looks like they are ready to make a serious run as a repeat champion. And that's nice to see, because you always love to see a team come back out of the gates, backing up what they did the year before, and trying to show that they are capable of doing it again. They are being challenged in their division by the Detroit Lions. Detroit hasn't had a winning season since 2000, and frankly, they haven't had their top players healthy in what seems like forever. But Matthew Stafford and Calvin Johnson and Javid Best through 2 weeks are the most dynamic offense in the National Football League. Now that team isn't the leading scoring team in the league. That's the Buffalo Bills. But the Bills, they've gotten the advantage of playing against teams like the Chiefs and then the Raiders. The Lions played against the Chiefs, but also the Bucs, who are supposed to be a pretty good team. The Lions' thrashing of Kansas City, 48-3, tells me that that team already understands what it takes to win games that they should win, and that's a big step for a young team. The defensive line is very good and covers up mistakes by the DBs and the linebackers, and Ndamukong Suh leading the way. It is a serious group that gets at the quarterback and bangs people around, sometimes to their own detriment with personal foul penalties as well as fines, but they intimidate and they play well. That is going to be a very interesting NFC North division, because I think the Lions will challenge the Packers. I don't think they'll beat them out, but I do think they'll push them, and that'll be good to see. The Bears, on the other hand, I'm not very impressed by. I know they had a week 1 win against the Falcons. The Falcons don't seem to play well on the road, and it showed again. Against an opponent on the road like the Saints in week 2, the Bears got shredded. I think it's going to be an uphill climb for the Bears. And the Minnesota Vikings, all you need to know is Donovan McNabb is still their quarterback. When you look at some other teams that are very good and have been playing well so far, you of course have to take a look at the New England Patriots. 2-0, racking up points. Tom Brady on pace for throwing for over 7,500 yards, which is absolutely insane. If he can keep any sort of close pace to that, the Patriots will surpass their own records from a few years ago and be the most prolific offense ever. Now, the Patriots do have a fantastic duo at tight end. They have complementary wide receivers, Chad Ochocinco, Deion Branch, Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, very good wide receivers. But the tight end duo is phenomenal. Aaron Hernandez, who will be out for a couple of weeks it looks like, and Rob Gronkowski, those two combined are unstoppable. Big, strong, and fast. You can't cover them with a linebacker because they're too slow. You can't cover them with a defensive back because they're too big. They are a matchup nightmare, and there are two of them. And that is a huge advantage. And Tom Brady, if given any time at all, will find the right guy to throw the ball to, and he did yesterday, and he did last Monday, and he'll continue to do it all season long. Now, just behind the Patriots, also at 2-0, are the New York Jets. They suffered a big injury. Their center, Nick Mangold, will be out a couple of weeks, but they should be able to hold it together. They can challenge the Patriots. They do have a solid defense. They do have Darrelle Revis. Antonio Cromartie is back there. No Michael Reeves, not Warren Cromartie, but Antonio Cromartie, he of lots of children. But the question is, can their offense do enough? Can Mark Sanchez be accurate enough? Can they open enough holes for Sean Green to really make a run at the Patriots? We'll have to see. But they're in good position. They took care of business after the big comeback on Monday night against the Cowboys. They took care of a team they should take care of. They thrashed the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're also 2-0. A surprise team in that division, of course, the Buffalo Bills are also 2-0. And they, amazingly enough, are the highest scoring team in the league. And yeah, Ryan Fitzpatrick has played nicely, and they have some okay wide receivers and tight ends and running backs. Fred Jackson is a beast in that backfield. C.J. Spiller is a nice breakaway guy, a good complement to Jackson. They have the offensive parts. Their defense, they won't be able to stop teams like the Patriots, probably not be able to stop a team like the Jets, and I don't think their offense will be able to go through teams like they have against the Raiders and the Chiefs in weeks 1 and 2. They'll probably be a feel-good story in that they may very well get to 8 wins this year. They might not have a losing season for the first time since 2004. That would be nice for Buffalo fans. I don't know if it's going to happen. And bringing up the rear of the Miami Dolphins, and they are dreadful. Of the other 2-0 teams that we haven't already talked about, and there aren't many that are left out there, one of them is the Houston Texans, who are doing enough. They beat the Indianapolis Colts handily in week 1, and they just beat the Miami Dolphins in week 2. Now, you might think that they have problems when Derek Ward, their backup running back, went down, and Arian Foster came back this week, but re-aggravated his hamstring. Fear not, and fantasy owners like myself definitely are not fearing, because we know about Ben Tate. Ben Tate is a big-time running back. He's gone over 100 yards both weeks, and he is going to dominate in the backfield just the way Arian Foster did. Why? Because the offensive line is very good. Also, because defenses have to respect the wide receivers and quarterback, especially with Andre Johnson and Matt Schaub, a terrific combination. They have all the elements on offense. Their defense will get better as the season goes on. They're being more aggressive. They will be a tough team to handle as this season wears on. Just how far they go will depend on just how good that defense becomes. Now, on the flip side of that coin, the Indianapolis Colts will probably not get Peyton Manning back this season. They probably might not have Peyton Manning ever again. I have gone on record, I said it last week, I don't know that Peyton Manning will ever return to the NFL. It's not what I'm wishing for, though people know that I rip Peyton Manning. I am not a Peyton Manning fan when it comes to the playoffs. Love him in the regular season, don't love him at all in the playoffs, but you don't want anybody going out like he may very well go out. But when you have a neck injury, it's awfully tough to come back from. He's now had 2 surgeries. I just don't know that he's going to come back. I don't know that the Colts would ever pay him the big bonus that he would need for next year instead of just letting go of that contract. It remains to be seen. I know Curtis Painter and Kerry Collins aren't the answer, but as Rick Pitino would say, Peyton Manning's not walking through that door anytime soon, and that's a big problem. This Colts team, well, they could lose a lot of games this year. Peyton Manning's rookie year, I believe off the top of my head that they went 3-13. Those 3 wins might be more than what this team ends up this year in the win column. And that would be sad for such a good franchise. But this is what happens when you don't prepare for the inevitable, which is guys eventually break down, injuries happen, nobody lasts forever, nobody starts forever. Even the F word, even Brett Favre in Green Bay, they finally put together a succession plan, and then they moved him out the door. Now, Manning wasn't at that stage. It's not like that. But then again, Favre wasn't at that stage when they drafted and started grooming Aaron Rodgers. But when he got there, Rodgers was ready, and they moved Favre along. That's what the Colts should have done. That's not what the Colts have done. And now they have a big problem in themselves, and they are done for this season, and maybe for the foreseeable future. Hello, Andrew Luck. How would you like to play with a horseshoe on your helmet? Now, if that's bad, then just think about what the plight of the Kansas City Chiefs is. They struggled last year, but put themselves in position to have a good season. Jamal Charles, a dynamic running back, well, he's out with an ACL tear. And Eric Berry, their safety, who held together what wasn't a very good defense to begin with, he went out for the season after week 1. And their stud tight end, Tony Mokiaki, if I pronounce his name wrong, I apologize to him. He's gone too. There's nothing left in Kansas City except a whole lot of losses. They are a legitimate candidate, like the Seattle Seahawks, to go 0-16. The only thing that's saving those two teams is the divisions they play in. When you have a shot at the Broncos and the Raiders, and yes, even the Chargers, who keep shooting themselves in the foot like they did on Sunday against the Patriots, you have a chance to get in the win column. Same thing with Seattle, with St. Louis, with Arizona, and also with San Francisco. Those teams aren't very good. You might get a shot. If they played in any sort of real division, they might never win a game this season. But they'll have a chance. I'd love to see it happen. Frankly, I'd love to see them both lose all their games. And then rebound from that like the Lions have done. Rise from the ashes, if you will, if you're Phoenix. Restore the roar, as the Lions are trying to do in the Motor City, and come back from that. But these teams, you can already tell that they are done for the season. They're already done. And I know, Pete Carroll, you took the job not because there were violations at USC, but because you just thought it was a great opportunity in Seattle. Right. Enjoy all the losing. You'll have lots of money, but you're going to get fired. The good news for you is Lane Kiffin will probably be fired by then, and you can step right back into USC or come to some other Pac-10 school where they're done with their coach, and you can be there again. Heck, maybe you can go to Stanford and take over there, where you loathe Jim Harbaugh and ask him, what's your deal? Maybe that'll happen. But you're not going anywhere as the coach of the Seattle Seahawks, not when Tavares Jackson is your starting quarterback, and who even knows who his backup is. So, rolling forward and looking to week 3, going to take a quick peek at the schedule as I pull it up here on my computer and see which are the top games that are coming this week. And of course, don't forget, we're back here on Monday night. We'll be here for another Monday night pregame show beginning at 8 p.m. Eastern Time and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. And then the postgame show, which comes on after Monday Night Football, roughly 9 o'clock Pacific Time, midnight Eastern Time, 9 o'clock Pacific Time. Next week's game, Washington at Dallas, a chance for the Cowboys to move into a tie for the division lead against those undefeated Washington Redskins. Some big games on the docket, Houston at New Orleans. Which team can play a little defense? That's the team that will come away a winner in that game. Huge matchup. I'm excited about that. Two very explosive offensive teams. The Giants at Philly becomes an interesting game if Michael Vick can't play with his concussion. New England is at Buffalo. They're both 2-0. Buffalo's even outscored every other team in the league, including the Patriots. That will end after this week. The Patriots likely to thrash them. You also have Detroit going into Minnesota. Minnesota's not good, but Detroit needs to win in a tough environment, which Minnesota can be. They need to continue to prove that they are ready for primetime football, and I expect that they will. Baltimore goes to St. Louis. The Rams are in big trouble. They need to get themselves a win. Baltimore was embarrassed this week at Tennessee. I see the Ravens coming away with a big road victory if they decide they're really serious about making a run this season in the AFC North and at the AFC title. The Jets go to Oakland, where they've stumbled before, but they should be able to take care of the Oakland Raiders. The Jets' run defense better be prepared because Darren McFadden is an absolute beast, You got to love to watch him run. If you haven't watched many Oakland games, watch it just for Darren McFadden. As exciting as he was in college at Arkansas, he's just as much fun to watch now that he's in the pros. And another big game, Green Bay at Chicago. The Bears, I don't see how they win this game, but if they could knock off Green Bay, it would be huge. That's another big game on the docket. And Pittsburgh will likely absolutely crush Indianapolis in that Sunday night game. That's the other game I'm looking at as the week moves along. So don't forget, we'll be back here next week, same time, same webcast right through Ustream. We'll be back here at Soup's Sports Grill in Woodland Hills, California. If you're in the San Fernando Valley, you can come out and watch the show live, pre and post game. As well, enjoy the great food specials, the drink specials, and all the fun that is Monday Night Football when the Redskins travel to Jerry World to take on the Cowboys. And don't forget, of course, Charles E. Smith Jr. will be back next week. We'll have the full cast and crew here. We'll work on getting some of the titles, some of the graphics, and everything else to spiff up this show. But until then, this has been an Inside Sports production. Upon further review, I'm Jake Stevens. Enjoy the rest of your Monday night or Tuesday morning.